Good afternoon. I'm Carol Olson Day of the New York Times. Welcome to the 11th Annual Arts and Leisure Weekend. Today we are thrilled to have as our guest an Oscar-nominated actor who has made his mark on film, theater, television, with indelible portraits of complex, compelling characters. Last year he appeared at the Barrow Street Theater in the acclaimed Mistakes Were Made. On the movie screen, he can currently be seen in the film Take Shelter, which premiered at the 2011 Sundance Film Festival. And on TV, he stars in HBO's hit Boardwalk Empire. You'll hear much more about this singular talent and his work from our moderator. Every Monday, his media equation column is must-reading for everyone concerned with how media intersects with business, culture, and society. He also writes about film, television, and books for the arts section. And he was the first carpetbagger on nytimes.com, chronicling the magic and the madness of the movie awards season. Also last year, he appeared as a character, his own, in the film Page One, inside the New York Times. He's also the editor of the compelling memoir, The Night of the Gun. So please join me in welcoming David Carr and our very special guest, Michael Shannon.
You. Thank you. Is mine working?
What?
Yeah.
I can't hear you. What'd
Okay.
you say? Kidding.
Okay.
It's a good crowd. Although I've been tweeting all week that there'd be a kind of a song and dance interlude, which is why.
From me? Should we start with that?
Yeah.
Get out.
I don't know if we got our music cues yet. So I think that's part of what's going on here. You came right from the airport.
I did, yes. LaGuardia.
I thought it was Newark.
It was going to be Newark, but I missed that flight because in Dallas they have a south entrance and a north entrance to their airport, but the north entrance doesn't exist. And that's the one we were shooting for. So then we had to drive all the way back around the airport, and I missed my flight. And then we found the south entrance eventually, and I got on a later flight to LaGuardia.
And you came home only for this?
I came home for this, and I came home to see my daughter and my girlfriend, Kate, who are actually in the green room. Yes.
What are you doing in Shreveport? You're killing people, you said.
Yes, I'm making a movie called The Iceman. It's based on the life of Richard Kuklinski. They showed a documentary interview with him on HBO a few years back that was insanely popular for some reason. I guess people are fascinated by someone who would do the kinds of things he did. But he was also a family man. He had a family, and he was very devoted to his family.
So sort of like you.
Yeah. Well, that's something I think about actually, is that because I was actually wondering the other day, I was like, why am I doing this? And I was like, oh, I see, because there's like an analogy or a connection for me. It's like, it's a very extreme example of what I think a lot of people experience, is that, you know, you go to work and you do something that maybe is discordant, and then you come home and you're doing that thing to take care of this thing that's very valuable and precious to you. So, he even refers to himself as kind of a Jekyll and Hyde person. So I think that duality is something interesting to work on, so that's why I'm doing it.
Well, it isn't that much of a reach because you have a sunny disposition, obviously. You're a happy, cheery guy. But you're not always cast that way. And so you've got to shake off you know, if you've been doing, say, Van Alden all day,
Right.
but then you got to come home to Sylvie and Kate and imitate a human being and be a nice person. Is that hard?
Well, no, I mean, it's not really. To me, it's kind of like, it's a job. It's a task, and the point of it is, and I'm not always sure that I'm doing this in my own work, but I think the point of it is to expend all that energy there on the set in front of the camera.
Right.
If you're taking something home with you, that to me means you're not doing it right. You're supposed to leave it all there and give it all to the people. And then when you go home, you're basically just an empty shell of a man.
This guy, the Iceman, you know, his day job is killing people, and then he comes home and he's a nice person. But if you take a lot of the characters you played, they're sort of, there's this moral torment, right? And so I'm thinking, is that your lot as an actor, or is that just our lot as a culture, that these incredibly conflicted people are you know, frequently coming up in film, on television?
Well, I think it's always good to have characters that are specifically dealing with morality. I don't think there's ever a shortage of those kind of characters. I think morality is something very important to keep an eye on and to keep thinking about. It's the absence of morality or struggling with morality that I find more troubling. Is, you know, just a void of, oh, I just do what I want to do and nothing matters. You know, it's seeing, you know, for me, the reason someone like Van Alden's a compelling character is because every time he does something wrong, it really bothers him. He doesn't just shrug it off. And he tries, you know, particularly this last season, he tries to make amends or make it better, which is impossible because he's made so many mistakes, but he's trying.
I mean, at one point he says to his wife, twice actually, he says, everything I've done for us. And it's like, well, let me see. You drank when you said you never would. You drowned your colleague. You made love to the girlfriend of a crime boss, and so on. So I don't know if that really accrued to the benefit of his wife.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean, the point of that is, you know, he doesn't like being away from Rose, and he went to Atlantic City on this mission. It was a crusade, you know, and it was also it was his job, and it was a way to take care of her, and you know, because his other options were to stay in White Plains and be a farmer, which he wasn't really jazzed about, and so yeah, I mean, people say things like that in life, you know, and I think there's a prism in their perspective that where that actually makes sense. You know, I think he's obviously talking more about trying to get this. He thinks that if he can get this child to Rose, that it will fix everything, and it will make everybody. It will make Rose happy, and it'll be like a new beginning. You know, and I think that's really what he's talking about when he's on the phone with her.
But instead, he ends up going like on full tilt.
Because he drinks, but he doesn't drink. He has a drink, but he doesn't keep drinking.
Right.
He has sex with Lucy, but he doesn't keep having sex with Lucy. I mean, he makes mistakes, and then he's like, that was the absolute wrong thing to do.
Kills his partner, doesn't kill the next one.
Yeah.
Sort of a learning curve.
Yeah. He's trying, you know. I mean, you know, I guess I didn't know it was that funny, but it's never very funny when I go to work. It's always, I get the sides.
Yeah,
I'm like,
at bottom, this is a moral fable. His part of that. No, maybe Boardwalk as a whole. Kind of a moral fable about an excess of moralism and where it will bring you.
Well, yeah, and it's also about this place, Atlantic City, you know. I mean, that was Terry's. He did what he told us all at the beginning. He's like, I want to create. It's not just about the people; it's about the place, and it's about how these people come into this place, and this place changes them. It's like this, crazy forest or something. But I was going to say something else. This is the thing I don't understand. It's like a lot of people say, "Oh, Van Alden, he's so mean, he's so evil, he's so terrible. I love you. I love to hate him, and all these things." And I look around, it's like every other person on the show. I mean, literally, the character that Bill Forsythe played, goes in, shoots Alexa, shoots her lover, is cutting people up in his butcher shop. I'm like,
He does it with such style, though.
Oh, that's my problem, is lack of style. Van Alden.
Well, Van Alden is not.
At least Van Alden feels bad about it. I mean, I don't see anybody else on the show who's like, I really shouldn't have cut that.
Well, Van
guy's
Alden,
face off.
very ritualistically whipped himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of a sacrament almost.
Mm-hmm.
But part of what goes on, Atlantic City, let's face it, not that much has changed. A man sort of away from his family, alone in Atlantic City, probably not a great situation these days either.
No. I mean, it's. But I think that's what when he sets out to do it, he feels like he's up to the challenge, and he knows that he enjoys just how daunting it's going to be, because he thinks he's so strong, and he thinks he has such a strong foundation, and his beliefs are so strong. That's like you said. I mean, it's a good thing you said about excess morality. That I guess it comes full circle, But people are we're all very vulnerable to our surroundings, and
these are very strong headwinds that he's facing.
Yeah.
That what goes on in Atlantic City has an annealing force on everyone.
Yeah.
That's there, and nobody's totally good and nobody's totally bad. Nucky's not a totally bad guy. He's there's certain things he will not do.
Yeah.
Right.
And Margaret is very interesting character too.
Especially this year.
Yeah.
Because she wants to do good. She wants to, but can't quite pull it off from where she's standing.
Yeah.
Did you call him that the whole time, Mr. Scorsese?
I didn't speak to him.
Oh, you did?
Stood in the corner. No. Yeah. You can talk to him. He's he's lovely to talk to at like 3 or 4 in the morning, because he just keeps going. I don't know how he does it. He's capable of shooting a very long period of time, 18-hour a day, and it's because he wants to get everything so exact. So he rides it out. He's got this stamina. I don't know where it comes from.
And in terms of words per minute, there's not anybody that can beat him. I mean, he can really crank. He can talk.
When I met him for the part, I went to meet him with Terry. Terry was there too, and Terrence
Winter, who is
the
conceived.
The conceiver, the godhead of the whole thing, and I'd been shooting all day. And I had been in rush hour traffic, and they kept calling every 5 minutes and saying, you got to get here right now. He's about to leave. I'm like, I was having like a seizure. I was like, please don't make him leave. Let him stay, please, And I get there, they're like, oh, you're just in time. And I run up there, and he's like, so, Michael, I've been wanting to meet you. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like seeing stars and shapes, and I was like, that's Martin Scorsese. He's talking. I think he's talking about Italy. Now he's talking about Atlantic City, and now I don't know anymore. I don't know anything.
But it worked out.
It did.
So once you get into the swing of Boardwalk Empire, you think, well, I'm a cop, and then it turns out, I mean, the way this season ends, and in a sort of DVR, TiVo, HBO on demand, we shouldn't engage in a bunch of spoilers. But your guy really goes off as a rocker. I mean, and when he sort of exits the scene, we have no idea what's going to become of him. Do you know?
Excuse me. I know a little bit. Yeah.
Can you show a little leg here? I mean, are we?
Well, I think a lot of it's dictated by necessity. I mean, he obviously needed to leave, so he
Right.
left. He's got a baby, and he's got this nanny, and that's about all he's got.
I was noticing a little chemistry with the nanny.
She's very nice. But I remember the first day she came to set, and she has to do this accent, this Scandinavian accent. And people on the crew would start talking with it, and it pissed me off. Like, don't do that. In front of her, they'd start like making fun of her accent. I'm like, don't do that. This is very. Can you imagine this poor woman? She's coming on. So yeah, I guess I'm protective of her.
On stage or on screen, have you ever done a heavy accent?
Accent?
Yeah.
Yes, I've done English and Scottish, and that's it.
Do you mind just doing Scottish the whole rest of the way through?
Well, I would, except so I was doing this play, and my friend Ewan Bremner, an actor from Scotland.
From Scotland?
From Scotland, yeah. He came to see the play, and I had worked really hard on this accent. I'd spent like 2 months listening to Billy Connolly stand-up routines.
That sounds tough.
Yeah. And I worked really hard on it. He came and he's like, well, why don't you just set the play in Chicago? I said, because you can't, because it's supposed to be in Scotland. It's all about the Scottish problems and the Scottish way of life and all this. He's like, yeah, but none of you guys, I mean, what were you, Irish, Welsh? I don't know. I was like, don't say that. I worked really hard on this. He's like, no, you're nowhere in the ballpark anymore. It's ridiculous. So, and he's a nice guy, so for him to say that is really upsetting.
But that was in Chicago at what theater?
A Red Orchid Theater.
Do you still? I can't remember because you're like Kate's involved with Steppenwolf.
I'm a Red Orchid man. I'm gonna go back there. It's our 20th season next year. I've been there since the beginning, and I'm gonna do a play there.
Whose play? What is it?
Well, we don't have the rights yet, but
okay.
We're looking at a couple of things. Howard Corder, who writes for Boardwalk,
right.
He's also a wonderful playwright. He's given us a new play that he's been working on. Maybe a Shepherd play. I don't know. We're still trying to figure it out. But I'm going to go back and do some sort of big thing. Yeah.
What about a little romantic comedy?
What do you suggest? I don't think romance is funny.
You don't?
No, I think it's very serious.
If you say so.
How about a serious romance?
But you have played.
I really, really love you.
Yes.
I love you so much. Come here.
I'm kind of schwitzing while you say that. I noticed on, what was it, Adorable Things? You just did this interview on MTV.
Yeah.
You actually let the interviewer tickle you.
Yeah.
And you had like a hat on.
Hat on, yep.
What was the hat, a cat or a bunny or?
Yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time looking at it because it was on the top of my head, so I can't really remember. I think it was.
Well, it's sort of burned into the back of my irises.
Yeah.
I gotta say, no matter what you do, that's probably going to be the most salient piece of video is you holding a little stuffed animal.
Right.
And with like a cat hat on.
Well, what song was I singing? It's from Dirty Dancing. Exactly. Yeah, very good.
It was very well done. So that guy tickled you, but you have played a love interest. I mean, you're doing this movie Return, where the soldier comes back and are you the loving, adoring husband?
Yeah, I'm the husband that stayed at home and raised the daughters. while my wife went to the war, played by Linda Cardellini, who is
I saw
phenomenal.
the clip, and like she is amazing.
She's so super talented. It's crazy, and she doesn't, she doesn't do a whole lot, and she hadn't done anything for a while, but she got this script, and she really got turned on by it, and she really gave it everything in her toolbox, as it were. Yeah.
In Take Shelter, which is getting some critical attention and some awards attention, you're the loving husband as well. Mm-hmm. You just slowly, unexpectedly, sort of either lose your marbles or the world ends. We can't tell which. It's sort of the apocalypse is an inside job.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I mean, and I've said this, I don't mean to waste time saying things I've said, but to me, the film is it's like a poem about the feeling of anxiety, not insanity, but anxiety, which I actually think is a healthy sensation. About
that's good, seeing as you live on it. But
yeah. But seeing as the state of the world, it seems to be. I mean, is there anybody who doesn't think there's something troubling going on in the world? I mean, if you don't believe in the environmental side of it, then it's the economic side of it, or the military side of it. I mean, it seems like there's something amiss, and.
So if you're not freaking out, you're just not paying enough attention.
Yeah, but and you always think, one of the things I like about Take Shelter is you think people that are really tuned into that live in like the big cities or New York or all these apocalypse movies are always in big cities, but it's like, what about in these small rural areas that we always assume are so quaint and safe, and everybody there is kind of tranquil and happy. And it's getting to the point where even those places, there's an unease, and and I know it because I've been shooting in these parts. It's so interesting. You think film.
And you grew up in Lexington.
Yeah, in Lexington. But you think of it as such a glamorous thing, like, oh, I'm going to go out to Hollywood and make movies, and then all the movies you make are in places like Cleveland and Detroit, and Shreveport, and Arkansas, and you see firsthand like. Neighborhoods just falling apart, places boarded up, toxic waste dumps and all this stuff, and even these areas that used to be seemed so safe are not really safe anymore.
Well, yeah, and if you do get out in the country and you're rolling along and it's at dusk and you see that bucolic farm on the hill and the one lone light in there, that may be a great place, or it might be a life of quiet desperation.
Yeah.
I mean, you never can tell. In this case, it's sort of visualized by the sky.
Yeah.
Sky, things are happening in the sky, and I watched it once just as a moviegoer, eating the popcorn, loving the film, and then I watched it again, sort of with an eye toward. Our quality time here together. And I thought, when you're standing there and you're looking at this amazing, magnificent sky, it isn't really there. So what are you looking at, or what are you thinking of? I don't know anything about acting, so I wonder when there's a lot of scenes where you're seeing something that no one else seen, and it's like the biggest lightning storm there ever was.
Well. Yeah, for me, I mean, it's really, there's a very spiritual component to the film, which I think is very subtle, and it doesn't hit you over the head with it. I mean, Curtis doesn't go to church, and he doesn't really, believe in all that. But I think part of the anxiety is being summoned from a certain need for that. Like, I think when he's looking up at the sky, he's not only seeing storms or a threat or whatever, but he's wondering if there's anything controlling what's happening. Like if
he's on a spiritual quest.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. I mean, I think that's what I like about it, is I feel like it plays on different levels. There's obviously the emotional level or the psychiatric level, but there's also the spiritual level and a sociological component to it, for me anyway, as well.
This second film you've made with the director Jeff Nichols.
Yes. Yes.
And what is it about either the stories he chooses to tell or the way he tells them that, I mean, we've talked about him before. You really like working with him.
Yeah, he's just a real straight shooter, you know. He understands films very well, and is a real student of film, and he's pretty fearless about taking risk. I mean, he admits that in a way, Take Shelter was kind of an experiment, and he knew that, for example, people might that the ending of the film would be potentially confusing or divisive or whatever, but he didn't care. He knew that's the way that he wanted it to be, and he's, you know, for someone as young as he is to be so certain, and that's something I find very compelling. I like working with people that know what they want to say.
Well, part of what I like about the ending of the film, and we don't do spoilers here at Arts and Leisure Weekend. We're not in that business, but people are always complaining about, oh, they just tied it up with the ribbon at the end. That was so expected, the big group hug at the end. I'm just so tired of that. And then whether it's the Coens or Jeff or the end of Sopranos or whatever it is, where it doesn't get tied up in a little bow, everybody freaks out.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's like here you're getting this great chance to go and think about this and interpret it for yourself. And like, I'm pissed off. I don't want to do that.
I like movies that put you on the sidewalk with something to sort of think about and puzzle out. And this movie certainly is one of them. You know, this guy throughout the film is, one of his driving motives is protecting his family.
Exactly.
Over and over again. And it demonstrates whether he's going crazy or not, what he's living through really is scary.
Exactly. And that, I mean, that's the thing, is that I think it's also very scary for him because, you know, obviously the history, if you've seen the film, with his mother and what she went through, and it's like he says.
Let's explain that a little bit, because on the one hand, he has a family history of mental illness, and so he's trying to figure out, am I losing my marbles?
Right.
And on the other, the world seems a bit off to him, independent of that, and it's sort of him trying to figure out which is which. Am I saying that right? Okay.
Exactly, yeah. But, you know, not just the fact that she suffered that illness, but that she abandoned the family, and I'm sure that took a tremendous toll on Curtis. So he just doesn't want to do that to his family. You know, he says in the film, you know, I promised that I would never do that to you. So, yeah, that little girl was really amazing.
What's her name?
Her name's Tova, and she's deaf. Both her parents are deaf, and they live in the Cleveland area. She'd never done anything before, and she just, every time I see her, I miss her. She really
So
did.
did you learn some Amislán for the role and to communicate with your fellow actor?
I learned a very tiny amount. There was a translator there, but Jessica actually learned a lot more, which kind of made sense because that's kind of the way it works with our characters, Curtis and Samantha, that Samantha is much more involved in trying to take care of the situation, and I'm kind of avoiding it and just waiting for it to get better. Jessica spent a lot of time learning and communicating with her. Yeah.
When this sort of goes at what we were talking about a little bit before, but do you ever worry there might be a quota, an actual number of crazy people you can play without actually becoming crazy?
I don't know.
Because you're heading up toward the teens, I think.
Yeah. Well, everybody's crazy in a different way, you know. That's what I find so interesting. There's so many different ways to be crazy, and so many different outcomes. I mean, I don't really think anybody I don't know a lot of people that I think are not crazy. So.
You think some people are just better at hiding it than most, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's such. I mean, particularly if you live somewhere like like here, and you
Right.
deal with everything happening all the time, all around you. I mean, there's no way not to. People, they develop. It's not crazy. You just develop a particular personality that. It's hard for me to say, oh, that is the correct personality, or that's the incorrect. You're crazy. You're not crazy. I don't. It's just it's a matter of how you survive, how you get by, how you're able to face it every moment.
Yeah, and I think you got to be careful, not just as an actor, but as a human being, of judging people.
Yeah,
You
you're
say
not
to
allowed.
yourself-
Yeah,
you say to yourself, because this city can be mean, and so you see the lady, you go, why are you sitting on the ground in front of the bodega crying?
Yeah.
And then the next day you're walking through Times Square muttering swear words and oaths under your breath.
Exactly.
And
You saw me that day?
yeah.
I don't recall running into you.
I've actually been stalking you for weeks as part of my
Jesus.
reporting for our little time together. And it's, a friend of mine explained it to me before I moved to New York, and I actually live in New Jersey probably with very good reason, but they said, if you want the fight, it's great. Go ahead. You'll do well. If you don't want the fight, then the city will just kick you from one end of town to the other. And it does, I mean, I guess it's not just a New York thing, but it certainly is focused here.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time I came here, I was very overwhelmed. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, I'm from Lexington,
Right.
Kentucky, and I had gone to Chicago, and that was the first time I went to Chicago. I found it very overwhelming, and then when I came here, it was a whole nother level. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's just pause on that. So you're in Lexington. I think your parents got divorced, did they? Yes?
Oh yeah.
Okay. But you became a theater rat at a very young age.
Yeah. Like in high school. That's when I caught the bug. Yeah.
And so you hung out, you did the chairs, you did the lights, but you didn't get off to a rollicking start. Didn't you get fired out of your first acting job? That doesn't really sound like a laugh, even though it.
No, I remember that. Yeah. No, the first time I went down to the city and auditioned for a show, it was something called West Bank Story. It was kind of based on West Side Story, but it wasn't a musical. It was a play, and I'm full disclosure, I'm not Jewish, so I'm not really sure why they agreed to see me, but I was cast as the Israeli, young love interest or whatever. And then, we rehearsed for a couple of weeks, and then they said, you're not, you have a lot of raw ability, but you have no technique whatsoever. So we're gonna have to let you go because you're not doing what we want you to do. And so I said, okay, fine.
Yeah, but here's what I don't understand. What part of you would I mean, reach up, pull the arrow out from under from your forehead and your
Soldier on.
and say, boy, that was great. I'd really like to do that again.
Yeah, I don't know. I did smart a little bit. It wasn't the only time it happened. It happened later. I don't want to embarrass.
Come on.
Well, no, because he's actually very, very, very nice.
I think you've
nice
already
man.
told this story. So
The Bogdanovich story?
Yes.
Yeah.
come on.
To Serve with Love Part 2?
Yes.
TV movie. I got fired from that.
Well, you don't have
want me
any
to tell the
hard
whole
feelings.
story?
Well, yeah, a little bit. I think it's good.
Okay, well, so they made a TV movie called To Serve with Love Part 2. obviously a sequel to the real, first one. And yeah, they were making it in Chicago, and I had just gotten my SAG card, and I was going in for audition to play the student, kind of like the prankster, can get you tickets to the game, kind of a bad kid, but with a heart of gold, I don't know, some crap. And I went in and auditioned, and Bogdanovich was like, hey, that's great, that's wonderful. And I think you'll be wonderful. And I was like, great. And so I show up for, there's a rehearsal. So they have all the desks set out, and they assign each one of the students, some of us have speaking parts, some of us are just extras, and we're all mixed in together, and we get our desk, and then, once we're all seated and we all have our pencils, just so, Sidney Poitier walks in, and we all clap, and they say, and he looks like, he, I don't know, just stepped in something. And he sits down on his desk.
I'm sure he's delighted to be thick of this remake.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a career highlight for him. But, so he's sitting there kind of staring at all of us, and he's like, okay, Peter, what are we starting with? And, well, we're going to start with a scene that features fine actor Michael Shannon. And he points to me. It's the scene I did in the audition. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm up first, but it's okay. I did it in the audition. Just do what you did in the audition, you'll be okay. So we do the scene. And afterwards, Sidney sits on his desk and he's staring at me. And then he calls Peter over and he whispers to Peter. And Peter walks up to me and he says, okay, Michael, the thing about your character is that even though he's kind of a rotten apple, he's very smart. He's a very smart young man. I was like, was I acting dumb? He's just very intelligent. I'm like, okay. So, okay, well, let's do it again. So we do it again.
And you try and, as you gather yourself, gain a few IQ points.
Yeah, I'm like, massaging my lobes, trying to juice out a couple of extra points. Yeah, so we do it again. And I try and translate this note, which is impossible.
Right.
And then Sidney sits back on his desk and he stares at me and he looks at Peter and he calls Peter over and Peter's like, oh yeah. Okay, Michael, here's the thing, is that your character, he's from the wrong side of the tracks, but he's a good kid and he's smart and it's a dichotomy, it's a contradiction. Like, okay. At this point, I'm like, maybe I need to change my accent up or something. Like, I don't. So we do this basically about 4 or 5 times, and every time the same thing happens, and I get the same note. And Peter finally says, well, let's take a break. Why doesn't everybody, there's some snacks over here, there's some drinks, let's all take a break. And Poitier drifts off to the corner, and he makes himself a cup of tea, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? How can this be happening? And there's a kid behind me, and he's like, look, man, I'm just an extra, man. I work at a bank. I'm a bank teller, but I want to get into acting, and so I took this job. But I just want to tell you, I don't know what's going on, but I think you're doing it right. I don't know what these people are talking about. And you hang in there, man, because this is some weird, what's happening here is weird. And I'm like, thank you, thanks for the support. So I stand up, I take a deep breath, I walk over to Sidney Poitier. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm telling this story. Oh, they don't care, they're all somewhere. Okay. So I walk over to Sidney Poitier, and he's still got the same he's had the same facial expression for about 4 hours now. It's just like,
well, he's a pretty serious dude anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And I say, Mr. Poitier, my name's Michael, and I was doing the scene with you, and I'm a very young actor. I live here in Chicago. I don't have a lot of experience. I'm very honored to be here and doing this with you. And I don't really understand. I think I feel there's something, I'm pissing you, what's going on? And he's like, he puts his tea down and he looks at me and he says, I don't know what your technique is, but you're weird. And he picks up his tea and he walks away. Then Peter Bogdanovich walks back in and says, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I want everyone to leave for the day except for Michael Shannon. Everyone else can leave and we'll see you tomorrow. Then I stay and they make me go through every scene I have in the movie, the three of us. Like Sidney reads his part, I read my part, Peter reads all the other parts. We do every scene. I walk home. By the time I got home, I have a message on my machine that I'd been fired. But you let this tiger out of the cage. This story gets even better. So, about 5 years later, I'm at the Coachella Music Festival in California, and I'm watching the music. Some guy taps me on the shoulder. He's like, "Hey, is that Mike?" I'm like, "Yeah."
It's the bank teller.
He's like, "You remember me?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Dude, I sat behind you. It's to Serve with Love Part 2. And I told you were doing a good job when they were picking on you." I'm like, "Oh, hey, what are you up to?" "Well, after that, I moved to LA to become an actor." I'm like, "Really?" "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, how's that going?" Well, it's been kind of tough. I'm not gonna lie, it's been kind of tough. But you know, I'm hanging in there. This is a beautiful day, a great concert." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, good to see you. What a strange coincidence." Then like 5, 6, 7 years later, I walk in to rehearsal for World Trade Center. All the principals are having rehearsal with Oliver Stone. You go in, you sit, and you talk to him. And there's this guy sitting across the room, and he's like, "Hey, Mike." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Man, you still don't remember me?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "I sat behind you to Serve with Love Part 2. I saw you at Coachella, and now I'm saying and it's Michael Pena.
Wow. Well
Michael
done.
Pena. He did it.
That was a long trip, but a pretty sweet one, I gotta say.
Yeah. That's one of my 3.5-star stories.
Let's just, yeah.
Thanks.
I knew if I kept scratching at that one, it would pop. I mean, part of the stakes that were underway is doing a movie in Chicago. You were doing theater work at the time, yes?
Excuse me, I'm choking. Yes.
So this was like your ticket to the show. Big deal.
Yeah, but I was excited to do camera work, but I still can honestly say to this day that I prefer doing stage.
Why?
I just feel like I can really get into it on stage. There's something about camera work that's very nerve-wracking. It's like, when you're on stage, it's like, I'm gonna act. I'm gonna do this and act. And then when you're on film, it's like, okay, act perfectly, because if after today, you're never gonna get to do this again. And people are gonna see it for the rest of your life. So do it exactly right now. When you're on stage, it's like, I'm on stage, this is great, I love it.
Well, filmmaking it's photography. It's a series,
yeah.
And so, you know, the way your lips turn down, that's like super important.
Yeah.
And so it's
Or facial hair.
what I always think is, what if you start thinking about that stuff? Do I tilt my head this way? Do I tilt it? I mean, it's kind of a weird game. I just wanted, before we walked away from that bit of rejection, people think actors must be either narcissistic freaks, which many of them are, I've covered my share of them, or that they've got just unbelievable self-confidence. But I experience actors as pretty sensitive people, generally, that they don't have a lot of skin. And so it's a weird thing about your job that in order to authentically portray the sort of bandwidth of human emotions, that you have to be open to that and hear that in other people. But you can't really pay that much attention when you have them, because, I mean, that's, you know, your first role, and that's Sidney Poitier, he has like an Oscar and stuff, and he's like, you're weird.
Yeah, no, it was devastating. It was, but you know, I mean, the thing is, I mean, I don't mind if someone walks up to me and says, you're really bad. It doesn't bother me. I mean, nobody likes to hear that, but it's okay, because I always feel like, well, yeah, I need to get better. Of course, right. We all need to get better. I mean, right. Who doesn't need to get better at what they do?
But in terms of the nice thing about theater is that it happens over and over.
Exactly.
Again.
Yeah.
And you can get better.
Yeah.
You could say, you know, your friend could say, you know what, that middle part, you kind of stunk it up, and it's like, I'm gonna try that tomorrow. Here's the thing about that, though. I saw you in Mistakes Were Made, and I think to myself, well, good for you. 90 minutes straight on stage, right? But that to me seemed almost aerobic. I don't know how. It was like a parlor trick to be sitting there. I was tired just sitting there. And
yeah. It was fun, though.
It was. How long was the run?
4 months.
And did you just faceplant and sleep for like 20 days after that, or?
The second to last week of the run, I completely broke down. I caught a fever, and I just couldn't. It was like, I thought, yeah, there was one night I literally thought I was gonna die on stage. I just couldn't take it anymore. But then somehow I managed to recover and have a great last week. But it was also hard because we were doing that show through the blizzards.
Right.
Like there were literally days. There was a Saturday I did the show twice and then walked most of the way home in a blizzard, and then came back and did it the next day, on Sunday. So it was crazy time. But it was like fighting a dragon or something. It's exciting.
It's exciting, but the thing is and I'm all for slaying the dragon, but every once in a while you don't really feel like it. Like if I'm upstairs and I'm not really feeling, I can kind of keep my head down in a cube, you know, like lower it down a little bit. One man show, I mean, you're co-starring with like a fake fish in an aquarium, right?
And a secretary, yeah.
But she's off stage most of the time.
It's the words. The words inspire me. I just think the writing of that play was so phenomenally beautiful that it was like, it'd be like, you know, you're lucky if let's say you're a pianist and you want to play Mozart. It's like, that's a privilege. Like you know, and if you're not feeling up to it, well, then get up to it. I mean, the material inspires you.
But that's a cool space down there. You did Our Town as well there.
Our Town and Bug. We did Bug there.
And Bug was your sort of how you ended up here.
Well, there's two separate. There was the Killer Joe thing. That was the first time I came here. I did this play, Killer Joe, at the Soho Playhouse on Van Dam Street. Darren Lee Cole produced it and runs the place. And then Scott Morphy, he started Barrow Street, and I did Bug there like 5 years later, something like that. Yeah. And
do you feel like when you do theater that's putting gas in the tank, or no, this is what I do, or are these two different jobs? Because now you got a TV job, you're doing Superman, right? Mm-hmm. You did Superman.
Well, but
you play like General Zod, right?
General Zod, yes.
Which is great, you know, you're in a superhero movie, but didn't you feel tempted to say, how about Man of Steel? How about I not be the supervillain freak?
No, I wouldn't want to be Superman. I mean, and I look at Henry, who's playing Superman, and I think he's pretty spot on. And the thing that's very interesting is the take on it that Zach has and the writer has, that he's not just a freak, that he's not just, I just want to kill people and destroy everything. I mean, it's a little more complex than that.
So it's another killer that sort of looks after his family and his friends.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess that's the way it is nowadays. They're all just killers looking out for our family and friends.
And we all have hearts of gold.
And we all have
really
hearts of
do.
gold.
Even though they're black and tiny and nobody can see our hearts.
Exactly.
You're a working actor, so congrats to you. And you're getting a lot of roles and a lot of business. And then I've met your spouse before. She's a working actor, and I just, met Sylvie. And I think to myself, boy, in your business, you're supposed to make hay when the sun shines and just go, go, go. But every once in a while, do you just think, I think I'm just going to stay here in Brooklyn?
Well, yeah. I mean, that was one of the original, when I was considering, because it was a big decision to go on the Boardwalk Empire, and because, it's a big commitment. But I thought, it's great writer, it's great director, obviously, but also I thought, I could be at home, I could work at home, and be home, get to work and back in 5 minutes, because Steiner Studios 5 minutes from my house, and it was very.
Did it work out like you hoped it would?
Well, it did, except Kate, my better half, she works mostly in Chicago, so I was like, isn't this great? I'm going to start Boardwalk, and I'll be home. And she's like, well, I'm going to do a show in Chicago. So me and Sylvia are going to Chicago. And so I was like, oh, okay. So then I wind up flying back. I wind up traveling a lot. It's just the way it works. But I do think about that. I do think about just going home and relaxing for a while. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, actually. Yeah.
Do you think to yourself, part of the reason you probably said yes to Boardwalk is it's a big, expansive story, well told, some guy named Martin directing, I forget his name. But what is it about sort of the nature of our age that so much the ambitious, great work is showing up on a smaller screen? I'm working on a story about luck, and it's, it's Michael Mann, it's David Milch, it's Dustin Hoffman, it's this big, sprawling, amazing thing, and it's TV. It seems like a lot of great works happening on television. Do you feel that at all, or?
Well, certainly with the HBO, Showtime, AMC, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me personally. There was something I was curious about being in a story that had such a huge horizon line to it, like just kept going and going and going. And it's very different from like if you do a play or a movie, it's like you know what the story is, it's this little story, and you either do it the one time or you do it a bunch of times, but it's very contained. And this Boardwalk is like a bridge that forms in front of you as you're walking across it. I mean, you show up for every episode, you have no idea what's going to happen, and it is a totally different way of working.
Do you worry that, like at age 62, if it's popular, you're going to be, well, it's time to crank up the Van Alden thing again?
Take it to the casino, yeah.
Right.
One night only, Van Alden. I don't know. I mean,
you
these
and
shows,
Hugh Jackman, it'd be a song and a dance thing. It'd
exactly.
Be amazing.
Hugh Jackman could whip me on the back.
Yeah.
No, I don't, because even as popular as they are, like Sopranos or Wire, they when they're over, they kind of, it seems like people are able to move on and do different things. I mean, it's not like being. Because even the popular ones don't go that long, right? Like Sopranos was what, five seasons?
Yeah.
Yeah. As it compared to like, Three's Company, which just seemed like forever.
Especially the people who made it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? I have to. Forgive me. We're out of time. Was, as I expected, a wonderful pleasure to speak with you. I appreciate all you guys showing up.
Thanks. Sorry.
Michael, Shannon.
Thank you.